Martin Scorsese needs no introduction. He is one of the greatest filmmakers of all time, and definitely, in my opinion, the greatest filmmaker working today, only rivaled by Spielberg. He truly is one of a kind, and it's really fortunate for all of us that he's still making movies with the release of his newest film, Killers of the Flower Moon. So let's talk about every single Scorsese movie and celebrate the great filmmaker that he is.
Who's that knocking on my door? A lot of Scorsese's trademarks are here, like the themes of Italian American life and Catholic guilt, the kinetic camera work, Harvey Keitel, but the movie also feels scattered and messy. It is a promising start for a legend, but it's a lot more mundane and slice of life than you think, so be prepared. Also, some producer forced Scorsese to add a sex scene, and it's absolutely hilarious how he made it the most artsy, pretentious sex scene I've ever seen. Boxcar Bertha. This is more of Roger Corman's movie than Scorsese's. It's shallow and cliched but compensated by sex and violence. But there is something progressive about a found family that consists of a Yankee, a black dude, and a communist couple. Mean Streets. Now this is where Scorsese really found his footing. Mean Street has a raw, gritty feel that Scorsese's other more polished films don't have. De Niro and Harvey Keitel's performances are so good that it almost feels spontaneous. Alice doesn't live here anymore. It's amazing how Scorsese, a director known for macho crime films, created one of the most accurate human portrayals of a mother-son relationship ever put on film. Ellen Burstyn and the child actors' fantastic performances really made it work, but the real secret recipe to Scorsese's directing is his utmost sincere empathy for all of his characters. Taxi Driver. This is Scorsese's best film. It is a deep dive into the loneliness and isolation of New York City life and how it can change a man. Travis Bickle is one of the most complex and engaging anti-heroes in cinema and is played by De Niro in one of the greatest performances of all time. And add in the jazzy soundtrack and Paul Schrader's dialogue, and this movie has a vibe completely of its own. New York, New York. I never understood the hate for this movie. Sure, the clashing tones between the classic musical formula and the real-world circumstances are kind of jarring, but that is the whole point. It is what makes the movie so uniquely heartbreaking. I love how they use artificial backgrounds for that old-school dreamlike feel. De Niro's performance is kind of lackluster in this movie, but Liza Minnelli really stands out, especially in the musical sequences. It might be a little bit overlong, but this movie succeeds at being both a tribute and a critique of classic musicals. Raging Bull. Jake LaMotta is certainly one of the most complex characters ever put on screen, but also one of the most unlikable. It takes a really great director like Scorsese and a great actor like De Niro to find the humanity of this character together and show it to the audience. The King of Comedy. This satire of American celebrity culture is not only sharp and smart, but has only become more and more relevant as time goes on. Rupert Pumpkin is one of De Niro's most unique roles, and his mental instability really makes you question everything that you see. Scorsese's decision to use mostly static shots really emphasize on the nothingness of this man's existence. This movie is only unpleasant because of how painfully relatable it is. After Hours. This is a comedy, and Scorsese's sense of humor in this movie is so offbeat and absurd that it really caught me off guard. This is also one of those scripts where everything just connects together in a satisfying way. And Rosanna Arquette is a total babe. I love seeing a different side of Scorsese, but I have to warn you, this movie is weird. The Color of Money. Scorsese's direction is stylish, and Tom Cruise, Mary Elizabeth Mastrantonio, and Paul Newman give 3 fantastic performances, but this is mediocre for a director of Scorsese's caliber. The Last Temptation of Christ. Through this retelling of Jesus, Scorsese examines the spiritual conflict and the burden of responsibility. It is a serious, thought-provoking film with heavy subject matter handled with great skill. Willem Dafoe's performance as Jesus is not only a career highlight, but it's not even one of its weirdest roles. Goodfellas, the best epic in Scorsese's career. Goodfellas drops audiences immediately into its world of gangsters and deception and never lets up until the very end. It is unbelievably engaging to stay in this world with all of these wonderful characters. Cape Fear. De Niro and Nick Nolte face off in one of the greatest rivalries in cinema history. Both of them are at their peak here, and Scorsese imbues his usual style of moral ambiguity, complex characters, and energetic direction. The result is a hit. The Age of Innocence. Not only is this one of the most beautiful love stories ever told, it's also a brutal depiction of how rules and manners can stop humans' violent desires and passion. It holds as much power now as it did in the 18,000s. This is a brutal, devastating love story that reflects all the painful truths of reality. There's just a reason Scorsese called it his most violent film, despite it not having a single drop of blood. Casino. If you like Goodfellas, you'll like this. This movie is flashy, it's glamorous, energetic, much like the city of Las Vegas itself. There is an engaging romance here between De Niro and Sharon Stone that really stands out. Kundun. Scorsese's take on the 14th Dalai Lama has unparalleled scope and skill, but at the same time still manages to tell a deeply personal story about a child faced with the responsibility of an adult. The acting isn't on the level of De Niro or DiCaprio, but the character here is still deeply fascinating, and the musical score sounds epic. It's tragic how Disney swept this movie under the rug. Bringing Out the Dead. This is one of the most depressing films I've ever seen. Scorsese's direction really puts you in the shoes of a stressed out paramedic on the verge of a breakdown. Paul Schrader wrote the script, so it has all the best qualities of Taxi Driver and Raging Bull, and it's cool to see Nicolas Cage being so unusually serious. Gangs of New York. Another true epic by Scorsese with unparalleled skill and scope. This movie was a real transportive experience. It puts you in the front line of all of these massive historical events. It might be a cliche to say this, but it feels like you're right there with them. Daniel Day-Lewis and DiCaprio gave two powerful performances that cement their place as one of the greats. The Aviator. Scorsese is the right director to honestly portray the scope and glamour of old Hollywood. The true story of Howard Hughes is endlessly fascinating, and DiCaprio plays him wonderfully. Cate Blanchett and Kate Beckinsale gave great supporting performances as two real-life Hollywood legends. Hugh was a very complex man, but Scorsese did him justice by telling his story truthfully. The Departed. This movie is like a jigsaw puzzle where every character is a piece. It's a thrill to guess where the story is going, and even more of a thrill when Scorsese proves you wrong. These are some of the most colorful characters in Scorsese's entire filmography, played wonderfully by a whole cast of big names. Jack Nicholson especially stands out as a psychopath. Shutter Island. Scorsese's take on the horror/thriller genre feels wholly unique. The story isn't, but his directing style is. His focus on the themes of trauma and grief, as well as his deliberately disorienting direction, really set this movie apart. DiCaprio gives a truly intense and emotional performance here. Hugo. It is just as hard for me to believe that Scorsese made a family film, but the sheer amount of heart and passion that went into this really made the movie so touching, even more so than some of his best work. It felt so personal to Scorsese, as if he was having a conversation with his younger self, and we were given the privilege to listen in. Wolf of Wall Street. This is DiCaprio's best performance ever as Jordan Belfort, this charming and cunning stockbroker. This is a really long movie, but it went by fast thanks to the sheer energy and vibrancy of Scorsese's direction. It really made you feel like a part of this world, and see it through Jordan Belfort's unique perspective. It was a truly hypnotizing, mesmerizing experience. Silence. The movie may be about Christian priests, but its themes of belief and doubt are universal. This is a deeply thought provoking and profound movie that will stay in your mind long after it's over. The cinematography of this movie makes every frame look like a painting, and the decision to not use any music is genius because it really makes you feel the uneasiness and alienation of complete silence. The Irishman. Through the lens of a crime drama, Scorsese looks back at his career with the kind of introspection and wisdom that only a man of his caliber could have. And to see De Niro, Pesci, and Pacino acting together is like a masterclass for actors. And all the other performances here are great too. This is a true late career highlight.
There are a lot of films in his filmography that I have never seen before. So I was really shocked at just how consistent his filmography is. Apart from his first two movies, basically every movie since then has been either great or just amazing or just perfect, 10 out of 10. My absolute favorite is Taxi Driver, but there are still a lot of other films in his filmography like Goodfellas, The Age of Innocence, Silence, The King of Comedy, that are all 10 out of 10, and Wolf of Wall Street too. It's just insane how consistent his filmography is. And I don't know what his next movie is going to be, but based on his track record so far, I doubt his next movie is going to be bad.